Welcome, Symmetry Nation. Welcome to our Monday morning / afternoon sales call, depending on what part of the country you're tuning in from. Hope everybody had a great New Year's celebration and is ready to take 2022 and rock and roll. This is the first Monday of 2022. So for those of you that are tuned into the call, awesome job. This is where you get your year kicked off at. I am Regional Agency Director Josh Busick here. I am direct to Trey Alderson Cloutier, so part of the Alderson Cloutier, Jimmy Spieldiner, Brian Delaney, Edward Pritchett hierarchy. Super grateful for each and every one of those guys and the leadership that they've poured in and the path that they've paved ahead of us for myself and future generations. Today we are going to be talking about a very important topic. Today we're going to be talking about a topic of keys to a healthy sit ratio, and most importantly, understanding why people don't show up for appointments. It's one of the things that's a topic, especially once we've switched from in-person sales to a lot of us switched to virtual sales, that there was a little bit of, having to go through a relearning curve with things. But one of the things that we found, me and the gentlemen that are going to break this down the call today, you can still achieve a 70% sit ratio on virtual sales. It's very doable. It just takes understanding a few things. So we're going to break that down for you guys today. Before we do, one of the things I want to kind of set the proper mindsets and stuff for is one of the things when you're new coming into this business, the first thing you have to get good at is the activity. Right, you have to start getting good at the activity, 250 to 300 hours a weekend. And then when you put in those 250 to 300 hours a weekend, then you will start to get good at booking appointments. And then once you start getting good at booking appointments, the next thing you will get good at is booking appointments that actually show up. And then the last thing you will get good at is actually protecting families and writing applications. Right. So one of the reasons a healthy sit ratio is so important is because if you're full time, we know the system calls for 15 appointments a week. Right. So 70% sit ratio means you would get 10 sits a week. If you book 15 appointments, you should be able to sit with 10 of them. And if you sit with 10 of them, getting the 5 applications a week that the system calls for a full-time agent means you only have to write applications in half the people you sit with. Right. Why is that such an important thing? Is one, we can't actually protect a family if we don't sit with them. And if we can't protect a family, we can't make a commission and feed our family, right? So first and foremost, it's important because it's impossible to protect a family and get paid. But then two, when you have a good sit ratio, you're getting to sit with more people off of those 15 appointments a week you booked, which allows desperation not to rise and standards to fall, to where you don't get desperate or needy of needing something from the people you were sitting with. You're just there to show up, get 10 sits a week, talk to the people about, who it was they were trying to protect the home for when they sent this in, why, was that important? What does that situation look like? How difficult would it be? And then be able to just help the ones that it makes sense for, right? So if you can sit with 10 of them a week, closing on half of them on average isn't that difficult. And top sales and insurance agents here are closing way more than that. To kind of help me break that down, though, I have one of my good business partners here that I don't think Symmetry Nation has really gotten to know or hear from yet. He's not been around for that terribly long. He started here back the end of 2017. And by 2017, the end of 2020. And by the summer of 2021, this past summer, less than a year, he actually broke out as key leader. One of the things that, some stats and highlights for him through November snapshot, 11 months into the year, he issued $132,000 on his own pen. He issued 80.9% of his business year to date. And that's averaging $12,000 a month in issued net place business, which counts more than anything, right? Submit is for show, issue paid is for dough. So he's averaging $12,000 a month on his own pen, but he's also broken out as key leader. December was actually month 3 of his AO qualification. So we are anxiously awaiting the December snapshot to see if he hit AO. Looks like, by all means, we're not expecting that he didn't. But just a super great friend of mine, great running buddy. One of the things that I've admired about him ever since I've known him is just his emotional stability. He doesn't have high highs and he doesn't have low lows. I've been around him plenty of times where a client or a customer might frustrate the heck out of you like they do all of us. And he'll maybe stay frustrated for 5 to 10 minutes and he's back to control what he can control and on to helping the next person. So Preston, I want to kick it over to you just to say hi to Symmetry Nation, introduce yourself. I know you're not somebody that they've got to actually hear from on a call yet. So go ahead and give us a little brief intro of yourself and then we'll start digging into things.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate you having me on the call. Super grateful for your leadership and mentorship. And just an honor to be kicking off the first call of 2022. I'm Preston Semler, direct to Josh Busick, part of the Alderson Cloutier, Spieldenner, Delaney, Pritchett hierarchy. Just super grateful for each one of those gentlemen I just mentioned. Also, huge thank you to Brandon, Casey, and Brian for not only having this vision over 12 years ago, but taking action and creating this amazing opportunity for all of us. So just super thankful for that. I'm located in Hagerstown, Maryland. Been with Symmetry, as Josh said, since the end of August 2020. My background, I was in the car business for about 5.5 years. Started out selling cars, working with Josh. Josh was actually a sales manager at the time and trained me. We worked at the same dealership and had some good success with that. Became a sales manager, finance manager, eventually a general sales manager. And what I found was with each promotion that I got came a lot more responsibility for a little bit more pay. So over time, I just became sick and tired of being sick and tired, working the late nights and, never know when I was going to get home. Just not a good recipe when you have a family, as many of you already know. So, COVID hit and the future became very uncertain. And I decided that there was no better time for a change. And I wasn't looking for something easier. I was looking for something better. And just super grateful to have found Symmetry.
Awesome. Super grateful you did as well. So guys, let me pull up my screen here. We're going to get into this topic. I know a lot of you guys are anxious to get on the phones for today and start getting the week rolling. So the topic we're going to discuss is keys to healthy sit ratio. But most importantly, understanding why they don't show up to begin with, right? One of the things that I think is so important, a lot of times it's easy for us to start trying to find tips and tricks of how to fix a problem without taking the time to actually understand why people do what they do to begin with. So I think it's the most important thing is for us to start and understand why people do what they do. Otherwise, we end up spending our time trying to treat the symptoms rather than the cause of a symptom, right? So it's really important for us to understand that. And I'm going to flip over to a screen and Preston's going to break down kind of the main reasons why people don't show up, but also want to kind of hone in on your main motive. We can't teach or train you how to have the proper motive. That's going to be something that's up to you. And all of these things that we go through today are going to come much easier when your main motive is to protect families. All right, right? If your main motive is to make a commission, then that means you're probably going to be viewing people as objects. And if you view people as objects, you're going to get a lot more objections, right? So a lot of these things that we're going to break down are going to be a lot more natural to you if you can put protecting families first and then just rely on enough activity to help those that need the help. And also understand this, insurance agents don't have a good rap. Right. And most of the people, by the time we're talking with them, they have already dealt with an insurance agent at some point in their life, and they probably did not have a very good experience. Right. So we have to understand that they don't know that we're any different yet. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important to understand. Preston and myself, we were in the car business prior to this, and then now we're insurance agents. People don't like salespeople to begin with, but probably the two most hated sales people is car salesmen and insurance agents. So this is something that we had to kind of learn back in the car business, is that hey, people probably had a bad experience with someone before, and they're probably a little gun shy just because they don't know if you're any different yet. So kind of filter everything through that. And then, like I said, make sure your main motive is actually protecting families. And if you protect enough families, you'll make enough commissions, I promise, I've been here for just shy of 6 years now, and you can trust the activity more than anything. So Preston, go ahead. I'm going to flip over here, kind of run through these reasons why, and then kind of get into the ones that we can control versus the ones we can't control, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good. Yeah, as Josh said, there's a handful of reasons why clients don't show, and I think in the beginning we think that there's really two: they forgot, or something came up. But really, there's a lot more to it. And those reasons, first one there, again, something legitimately came up. Maybe the kid was playing soccer, got injured, had to rush him to the hospital, got stuck working late, something like that. Second thing there, a significant other wasn't on board. And, we have a good conversation. Usually we're only talking with one of the two spouses when we're booking the appointment. So something happens behind the scenes, maybe they discuss it. And the second one says, I'm not interested, not meeting with this guy. We're just not going to do it. And that's out of our control. We don't know anything of that. We just know that they didn't show up for the appointment. So third reason there is procrastination or lack of urgency. So maybe it is important to them, but just not super important. Fourth thing there, cold feet about meeting with a salesperson or fear of affordability. Like Josh just mentioned, a lot of folks that we're going to be meeting with or talking to have already talked to another insurance agent. And maybe they had a bad experience and they're just scared to meet with us at that point. And last but not least, the fifth one there, they honestly just forgot about it. They didn't put it on their calendar, or they just legitimately forgot. So what we're going to do here is break down which of these reasons are within our control and then the ones that are not. Because obviously the ones that are not within our control, we don't want to spend a whole lot of time focusing on. So we cannot control if something legitimately came up. Nothing we can do there. And it's not our job to convince a husband and wife or two spouses that it's important to them. That's between them. That's not our job. So we're really going to focus on those three reasons on the right there. Things that we can control: procrastination, lack of urgency, cold feet about meeting with a salesperson, fear of affordability, and lastly, that they honestly forgot about it. So before we dig into those, I want to talk a little bit about mindset first. We tend to struggle, especially in the beginning, when we find ourselves being no-showed. We want to overanalyze each case. We want to try to figure out why that family didn't show. And what we eventually begin to realize is that no-shows are just a part of this business. And the best way to deal with no-shows is to go into your week making sure that you have enough appointments booked. 4 keys to a successful week: resources, activity, schedule, system. And when we put in enough activity, we book enough appointments, we're going to have the mindset to be able to move on from a no-show, because we know we have several other families who need our help. So the first reason that I'm going to touch on there that the no-shows happen that we have within our control is that the client forgot. Now, I think it's our natural tendency with every no-show to assume they just forgot. And we can control this by having a consistent method in place on how we remind our clients. A good tie down when booking the appointment is important. If it's going to be a Zoom appointment, sending them the link and knowing they received it. Or if it's going to be a phone appointment, having them write it down and text them a confirmation. So whether we text them the morning of, we text them a couple hours prior, 30 minutes prior, there's no exact way to do it. But however we choose to do it, we just need to make sure we do it consistently. So if this is something you struggle with, don't be afraid to use a calendar, such as Calendly, to assist you with sending out those emails, those text messages to every client. What that's going to enable you to do is essentially eliminate that the client potentially forgot about the meeting. Now, another thing this is going to do for you, if you're sending your reminder text to the client in the morning, it's going to potentially help you plan your day. Just because they don't confirm doesn't mean they're not going to be there. And they may respond to your confirmation by canceling the meeting. Now that you know they've canceled, you have an opening to fill instead of that becoming a no-show later on. So another way we want to do that when we're texting them is we want to make sure that our text is very assumptive. One example would be, good morning. I have you on my calendar for 3 p.m. I'm meeting with several families today. If I'm running behind, I'll be sure to let you know. What we don't want to say is, hey, just a reminder about our appointment. If you can't make it or need to reschedule, just let me know. And obviously the second reason there, we're just opening up in a window that This isn't important. If you need to reschedule, it's no big deal, which is not what we want to do. So leads me into the second reason that we have within our control, and that is that they procrastinate. Maybe it's a situation where they want to take care of it, but they have the attitude that they're not going to die tomorrow. So they have a need, but maybe we didn't do a good job poking their emotional wound when we spoke with them on the phone. We essentially rushed through the conversation. We didn't really dig into their why, and we didn't really take time to summarize it and understand it. And another thing here that's important is as time passes, the more that they're going to become numb to the emotion, and suddenly it's not important to them anymore. For example, we go to the dentist, and one of the things that the dentist asks you is, any problems with any of your teeth? And what do? We say no. So then they start poking around your mouth, and they find a spot and they start poking at it a little more, and it really hurts. And it was there the whole time, but we didn't realize it until they poked at it. So they tell us, hey, you have a cavity. We're going to have to schedule you to come back in a couple weeks to take care of that. So what happens? A couple weeks go by, you've forgotten about the pain. So what do? You go play golf instead, right? You forget, you just don't go to your appointment. You don't worry about it because now that tooth's not bothering you anymore. It's a lot like that with this as well, is we want to book these appointments with a quick turnaround within 48 hours if you can, while that emotion is still fresh. So if you feel like you're being given pushback about them meeting with us, we want to get that objection out in the open right then and there, because we can't be afraid of losing something we don't even have yet. So then the last reason, or the third reason that clients no-show us, which we have complete control over, is that they're just scared to meet, scared they can't afford it, scared that they're going to be sold something. And let's face it, nobody wants to be sold, but people love to buy. So maybe they had a bad experience with another agent. Maybe we came across to them somehow as sounding salesy to them on the phone. Maybe we found ourselves having to talk them into the appointment or convince them to meet with us, which is not a position that we want to find ourselves in. So we want to be very assumptive throughout this entire process and everything that we do, to where we're not asking them for the appointment. We have discovered their need for the coverage, so we just assume the appointment and they book the appointment with us. So we never seek to overcome their objections, or we try to bull rush through them, because that's what a salesperson does. We seek to understand their objections, which is exactly what a consultant does. So those are really the three reasons there that we have some control over when it comes to clients not showing. So take it back over to you there, Josh.
Yeah, and that's so everything you said there was so spot on, Preston, with understanding like why people are doing that to begin with. So we can kind of start to dig into maybe some keys and tips on what it sounds like to properly address that and everything. Because like the one on the top here of the can control, procrastination, lack of urgency. We all do it. Like every single one of us do it. Like we do it with our health. We all know we need to go to the doctor. We all know we need to go to the dentist, but we kick it down the road, right? We've all had those circumstances where somebody had a health scare that was our age, and all of a sudden we become health conscious for a very short period of time. But it doesn't last very long, because our human nature is to not sit around and think about things that worry us, right? So we know they at some point they got a letter in the mail or a flyer of some kind that talked about covering the mortgage if something happened to them, and we know also that when they responded, they had a certain individual or person in mind that they were wanting to make sure the mortgage was taken care of for, right? In our agency, we commonly refer to that as the emotional wound. So when you hear us say emotional wound, what we're talking about is the who, right? We need to be able to understand before we book an appointment, we need to understand who, and then we need to understand that, what the problem is to solve. If there isn't a problem to solve, there's no appointment to book. Let's not kid ourselves. We don't want to set appointments that then we show up having to try to now sell them on something. We want to know what the problem is that we're trying to solve before we even actually book the appointment, so that we can actually now show up at the appointment, pick up the conversation further, and be able to provide a solution to it without having to sell. Right? This isn't a business where we sell them on it. This is a business where we solve problems. right? So when it comes to the emotional wound, as we talk about it, there's basically two scenarios that you're usually going to run into. You're going to run into someone trying to protect the home for their significant other, or you're going to run into a situation where there's a parent trying to protect it for their kids, or kids protecting it for their parents if they're younger. But generally, it's spouses and significant others protecting it for each other, and then parents protecting it for their kids. So I'll kind of role play with Preston here to kind of demonstrate how I generally go about identifying the emotional wound, and then kind of just poking it a little bit to make sure that there's a little bit of a sense of urgency and resurrecting that emotion, so that there's a higher likelihood of them showing up, and it also giving me an understanding of knowing what the problem is to solve. So I'll start with the scenario of kind of a husband and wife, or significant other protecting it for each other. So we go through the rest, the best script. We get down to where it's time to set the appointment, right? The S on the script. So Preston, this is the insurance that if something were to happen to you, it covers the mortgage. So who is it you were trying to make sure the mortgage was covered for in the event something happened to you?
My wife, Tara.
Okay, I got you. So your concern was if something happened to you, it might be a little difficult for her to take care of the mortgage and other bills on her own.
Yeah, that's right. It would be hard for her.
Gotcha. On a scale of 1 to 10, how difficult are we talking?
Probably a 9.
Probably not. Got it. Right. Then boom. Now that's all the further. You don't need to do it super aggressively. You need to be able to do it in a gentle way. And again, if your motives aren't proper, you're going to come off like you're backing them in the corner. So this is, again, a good example of where your motives have to be right to begin with, because you actually have to be caring, about it. And if you're not, if you're only viewing them as a way to get commission, it's going to come off like you're backing them into a corner. But if you can authentically care about them, it comes off more of trying to understand the situation that you're going to go find the solutions for, right? And what we just did was he sent the lead in, went in the mail, called it in online, whatever, right? By the time we call him a couple days later, a week later, if it's bonus leads, a couple weeks later, that his mind's eye isn't no longer on the problem. So what I just did was I just walked his mind's eye back to the reality of the situation, to where usually at that point when you'll kind of sense the tone of the conversation suddenly gets a little more serious. That's all you need to do. If you're not getting a good answer there, then you need to keep digging, right? If someone's saying, well, no, they'd be all right, they'd figure it out, I have plenty of other insurance, whatever, right? That gives you the opportunity to be curious. Don't try to overcome objections, but be curious, because Frank Betker says in his book, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling, whenever someone gives you an objection, there's actually always two. The one they're giving you and the real one. If you're trying to overcome the objection, you're not going to find out what the real one is. But if you can just be curious. So if you're not getting good answers there, just be a little bit curious. Like, okay, so what was the reason you felt like you had a need for this kind of insurance when you sent this in? Then? Like if they're giving you, well, no, she wouldn't struggle, I got other insurance. Like, okay, I mean, I'm only calling you because you had sent this in. So what was the reason you felt like you needed this type of insurance when you had sent this in initially then, right? And keep digging until you get there. And if you can't get there, don't book the appointment, right? Don't put people on your calendar that you don't have a good problem to solve. Because I said one of two things. They're either going to no-show you, or you're going to show up and you're going to have to start selling them and do a sales presentation and close them on it. And that's not what we want to do, right? So now let's talk about the other situation of emotional wound of a parent protecting it for their kids. Because that's a little bit different, right? When you start talking about how difficult would it be for a parent to protect the mortgage for their kids, a lot of times you say, I don't know what my kids' finances are. And you can go down a whole rabbit trail. What I've learned when it comes to a parent protecting for their kids, it's not really about whether it would be difficult for the kids to take care of the mortgage or not. It has more to do with it's just not the right thing for them to let their debt roll to their kids, who are also going to be going through closing out their estate, going through their belongings, cleaning out the house, going through the knickknacks, discovering things that they've given them as gifts maybe year before. There's going to be a big emotional process of closing your parents' estate and going through the belongings. And it's not really about whether they can't afford it or it'd be difficult. It's about they're going to have a lot of other things on their plate and a lot of other emotions going on. And it's not right to leave the the mortgage payment rolled to them. And again, their mind's eye is going to numb out to that because that's not a fun thing to think about. So their mind's eye is our responsibility is to kind of gently walk their mind's eye to the reality of the situation, to re-resurrect the emotion. So we'll role play that scenario with you here, Preston. So Preston, this is the insurance that if something were to happen to you would cover the mortgage. Who were you trying to make sure the mortgage was taken care of for if God forbid something were to happen to you?
For my kids.
Okay, I got you. Do they live with you or do they have places of their own?
They're all still at home.
They're all still at home. Okay, gotcha. So are you just trying to make sure that if something happens to you while they're going through your belongings, deciding what to do with the home, that they're not having to come up with that $1,200 a month mortgage payment while going through everything else, closing out your estate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's all we have to do. We just have to gently remind them of, taking their mind's eye to like, hey, when they pass away, it's not as simple as just sticking a for sale sign in the front yard, right? There's stuff of yours that they're going to want to go through. And let's be honest, when we're talking to, half the people that, we talk to are 65 or older, right? There's a fair percentage of them that have already had to go through that with their parents. And when we can ask those gentle questions of putting their mind's eye back on the reality of the situation, a lot of times they've saw that already happened before, or they've went through it with their parents. And it kind of gets back to the heart of the problem. And once you do that, then exactly like Preston said, you have a 2 or 3 day window where the sense of urgency is high. That's why we don't book appointments far out. But then also that allows you to show up to the appointments and now be able to have a better conversation to pick up where you left off. Anything else on that part, Preston, you would want to add?
No, the only thing I'll add is just like something you mentioned earlier on the call is when desperation rises, standards fall. And when we're chasing a number of appointments, you might have that natural tendency to force an appointment, especially if you have a background in sales. And this is something I struggled with at the beginning. Well, I'll book the appointment. I can convince them it's important when we get in the appointment. And it's not the way you want to do it, because if there's a need, it's not our job to convince them. And just enough activity to make sure that it all goes back to activity for sure.
Yeah, activity eats skill set for breakfast, as Casey Watkins always says. So the next one there, the one in the middle, the cold feet about meeting with a salesperson, fear of affordability. We know that they've already probably talked to other sales insurance people before. They've been told it's expensive. They're afraid they don't qualify, whatever. And they have knee-jerk reactions to meeting with salespeople to begin with. We all do. None of us like meeting with a salesperson. So how to avoid that situation best is, one, don't act like a salesperson. Don't act like a salesperson. Don't overcome their objections. Seek to understand objections, like we talked about a little bit earlier. They give you an objection. Don't just try to bull rush past it. Try to push pause and ask. Just be curious. Ask some questions, right? When it comes to setting the appointment, don't beat around the bush about setting the appointment, right? Don't one of the things that makes you look, smell, seem like a salesperson faster than anything is when you start to beat around the bush, right? People don't like that. People like you to be direct with them. So don't beat around the bush, right? Don't, if they say, well, do we have to meet? Can you just email me quotes? Don't go through this long, thing and start, regurgitating all over them. Well, I'm the eyes and ears of the insurance company, and I got this and I got that. Blah, blah. Bottom line is, no, we don't have to meet. We don't have to meet. That's up to you. You said if we did a good job of the emotional wound, identified who and how difficult, it's up to you, man. We don't have to meet. You said that you had sent this in to make sure the mortgage is taken care of for your wife because it was going to be a little difficult. Is that something that's important enough to you to actually get back together and talk on, or no? Right? I don't want to talk you into an appointment. I don't want to convince you of an appointment. I don't want anything. And as long as I did a good job of the emotional wound, I can circle back to that. I don't got to beat around the bush. Right? At this point, it's like we're not going to beat around the bush. And one of the reasons, the other spot that makes them get cold feet and makes you seem like a salesperson is when you ask for the appointment instead of setting the appointment. Right? We don't ask for the appointment, we set the appointment. Right? If we're asking for the appointment, we're asking something from them. We're supposed to put in enough activity, like Preston said, to be able to get to the bottom of who they're trying to protect, why, and now for the people that it's important enough to set the appointment to talk about it more, right? So an example of asking for the appointment instead of setting the appointment, is like if you start to get timid, and you're like, well, so unfortunately, we're going to have to get back together and look at this, and because we're going to have to do this and that. And you start to beat around the bush. You don't ask for the appointment. You got to be very assumptive in setting the appointment. And if you sense any hesitancy, ask about it, right? I'll kind of demonstrate how I set the appointment myself, how I'm very, very assumptive. And you can, again, only be this assumptive if you found a problem to solve. That makes sense, Preston. Completely see what you're trying to protect the home for there. So, hey, what I'll do at this point, I'm going to go work with all the different insurance companies and see who's got the best prices and options for you guys. After that, we're going to need to get back together for about 15 to 20 minutes to go over those options with you, answer any questions you guys might have, so you can go from there. We just do that over the computer. Typically, you guys got a computer, smartphone, or tablet at your house?
Yeah.
Got it. And I'm going to get an email address from you right there. Okay, got it. So what time of day do you guys typically get home from work?
Usually by 6:30 or so.
Okay, you and your wife are both typically home by 6:30?
Yeah, we're both there.
Okay. Let me look at my schedule here. Looks like Monday is getting a little tight. I can try to squeeze you in Monday somewhere around 7. If I can squeeze you in Monday around 7, will you guys both be home and in front of your computer?
Yeah, that'll work for us.
Got it. Great. So what I'm going to do here in about an hour or two, you're going to get an email from me with a Zoom link, and I'll get to that in the next part. But yeah, so like very directive and sort of right. What time of day do you guys typically get home from work? Okay, let me look at my schedule. My schedule's full. I can try to squeeze you in here. If I can, you guys going to be home in front of your computer? And if they're like, well, I think so, probably, I don't know, Monday's not going to be a good day, right? Shake it out a little bit, dig into it a little bit, but you set the appointment. I didn't say, notice I didn't say okay, so I can try to squeeze you in around Monday at 7. If I can fit you in at Monday at 7, would that be good for you guys? Would that work? Or would Tuesday be better? I'm not asking for the appointment. I'm being very direct and setting the appointment because I found a problem to solve. And now I'm going to do it to where that makes them feel, if I'm starting to ask for something, that they start to get that feeling like he's going to be high pressure and start closing, trying to pressure close me there. And then the last part, honestly, forgot about, like Preston talked about, just a proper tie down for me. Once we've said, hey, yeah, we can be home and in front of the computer at that time. Okay, so what's a good email address for you, Preston? I'm going to shoot you over a Zoom link in the next hour or two. They'll just have a link for you to click on, follow the prompts so you can see my face. If you have any trouble with it, give me a call. Side note, don't make a big deal if you're doing Zoom appointments. Don't make a big deal out of the whole process. If you used Zoom, it's that, hey, I'm just going to email you a link. You'll click on it, follow the prompts so you can see my face. You get stuck on it, call me, right? Make nonchalant. So Preston, but then here's how I tie it down. Hey, so Preston, can you do me a huge favor?
Sure.
Hey, when you see that email come through for me here in the next hour or two, can you shoot me a text back at this number? Let me know you got it, so I know it didn't get lost in cyberspace or go to your junk folder or anything like that.
Yeah, I can do that.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. So I asked for some type of a commitment that when he sees that, and then what I do is when I go and send these Zoom links out after I've finished downloading my stack, before I start again, I'll send the Zoom links out. And even though he said he's going to text me when he sees that email, what I actually do is after I send the Zoom links out, I'll shoot Preston a quick text and say, hey, Preston, this is Josh. I actually just shot you that email. Can you double check when you get a second and let me know if it came through? Right. And what do you think he's going to do? Like, it's really hard. Our human nature, again, it's hard not to respond to a text. So he's going to open up his email right away. Yep, I got it. And that allows me to now also just kind of be the normal guy that's in their phone. Perfect. Awesome, man. Hope you have a great weekend. I'll talk to you Monday, and start to do that to where then on Monday, when it rolls around, like Preston talked about, sending a reminder text. Now we're just shooting a little reminder text out there about, hey, got you on my schedule for such and such. Look forward to, if I'm running behind schedule, I'll let you know, but look forward to talking then. And that'll completely eliminates them forgetting about us. I honestly think most of the times when it comes to sit ratio, it's the procrastination, lack of urgency, and the fear of meeting with a salesperson is where most of it happens. Right? The things on the can't control side should only be about 30% of the time. The can control side is probably 70% of our sit ratio. And I think the majority of that 70%, because if we're, tying it down, send them a reminder text, it's impossible they forgot about us. So really, really appreciate you, Preston, being able to help break this down. Love seeing what you've done. Your success has been predominantly on virtual sales. You've proven that 70% sit ratio is very accomplishable. And then it just comes down to, like you said, activity. Any last pieces of advice or thoughts to give to Symmetry Nation before they started jumping on the phones and booking up their appointments for the week?
Yeah, just, follow the leader and be open to change. If your upline or your mentor is where you want to be, why wouldn't you listen to what they tell you? They have your best interest at heart. So just be a good listener and be willing to change.
Yeah, 100%. People only fail here for one reason and one reason only, and that's an unwillingness to change. I know for me at the beginning when I was struggling with sit ratio, I didn't want to take ownership that sit ratio was my problem. I wanted to make it the client's problem. These clients, they're just not being honest with me. They're not respecting my time. They're this, blah, 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 blah. The same thing as we do to salespeople too. And I didn't want to take ownership of it. And until I took ownership of it, I couldn't improve it. So 100% love that, have a willingness to change. So guys, we're going to wrap this up. One last thing. I hope to see a lot of you guys at conference. We have conference coming up here in right about a month. And I know some of you might be new on this call. You might be in the licensing phase. Whatever phase of this business you're at, I can promise you the keys to unlocking the next stage of this business is at conference, right? If you're in licensing or in your first 90 days and you're wanting to hit your breakthrough, the keys are at conference. If you've hit your breakthrough and now you're trying to become a key leader, you're going to find out how at conference. If you're, trying to hit AO, whatever the next stage is, the answer is going to be at conference, right? Jimmy Spildner used to always say success leaves clues, and so does lack of success, right? The highly successful people in this company, they're all going to be at conference. The people that you're looking up to that are getting the results. So if you haven't hit the done button on conference yet, give your upline. Look forward to seeing everybody there. Hope everybody has a great day, and let's get 2022 rocking and rolling.